Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a while. Today's video is a very special one. I'm extremely excited to finally talk about a project I've been working on for close to 2.5 years. I'd like to present the InterOcean 4-track. This device was made in partnership with Corey, who runs InterOcean Records, and Woulg. In the fall of 2020, I was really into creating loop tapes with my Tascam Portastudio, but was getting frustrated with the limitations working with an analog tape recorder presented, as well as the time and effort needed to actually construct the loop tapes. I decided to look for digital alternatives, but was unable to find anything that met my needs. This is when I had the idea to create a Maxforlive device that would preserve the workflow of cassette looping, but also offer the conveniences of modern digital recording. Now that we had the idea, we needed someone to build it. This is where Woulg came in. I had been a fan of his Maxforlive devices for a while and was starstruck when Corey mentioned he was an old friend. We spent the next 2 years testing and trying new ideas until we arrived at the device we have today. Before I get into the rest of the video, I just want to thank Corey and Woulg for making this plugin a reality and for all their hard work. Like I said in the intro, the initial idea for this device was a modern interpretation of a 4-track tape recorder. As we got further along in development, the device evolved into something that is much more than that. While it can function as a 4-track recorder/looper, it can also play back pre-recorded audio files and can pitch shift and stretch each track independently. You can also modulate the loop length, playhead position, and playback rate on a track-by-track basis. Each channel has its own compressor, EQ, and volume slider. There's also a master effects section. Playback can be linked to Ableton's transport controls for keeping everything in sync. I know this is a lot of information, but I think it should be easy enough to understand once I get into the next part of the video. When you load up the plugin for the first time, you'll be seeing the mini view. This gives you some control over the plugin without opening the main window. Open Main UI will pop out the main control view. The play button will start playback. The pause button will pause playback, and the speed knob controls the playback speed of all of the tracks. I'll get into these controls more during the master fader and playback controls chapter of the video. To get started, I'm going to pop out the main UI and go over the channel controls. Each of the plugin's 4 channels are identical, so I'll just be going over channel 1. I'm going to start from the top. This is the Input Selector drop-down menu. This allows you to route audio from an external source or a MIDI or audio track from inside Ableton. One thing to note is if you've added an audio or MIDI track after you've opened an instance of the 4-track, you'll need to press the refresh button. Next, we have the in-gain slider. This sets the volume of the audio source coming into the device. After that is the EQ section. There are 3 knobs here, one for high, mid, and low. These will cut or boost their respective ranges. The sliders on the right set the crossover frequency for the high and low bands. To the left of the EQ section is the tape length and recording controls. Under set tape length, we can sync the record buffer length to the BPM of the session and change it in 16th note divisions. If sync is disabled, then the length will be set in seconds. The record button will record arm the channel. Toggling on overdub will allow you to do sound-on-sound looping. The feedback slider underneath sets the amount of signal that is preserved between passes. At 100%, you will have full non-destructive looping, but as you lower the percentage, each pass will lower the volume of the previously recorded material. Underneath the recording controls, we have the playback rate, pitch, and direction controls. Pitch and speed control the pitch and playback speed respectively. Pitch will change the pitch in semitones without affecting the playback speed. Speed will stretch the audio without affecting the pitch. If repitch is toggled on, then the pitch control will be disabled and speed changes will now affect the pitch. The free toggle will lock speed changes to double and half speed increments. Underneath the speed controls are the fade controls. These can be used to add a slight fade to the beginning and end of the loop to cut down on clicks. This is especially useful when modulating the playhead start location. Next are the start and length knobs. Start sets the start point of the loop and length sets how long the playback window is in seconds. Underneath is a drop-down menu similar to the record buffer length menu where you can set the loop length in 16th note divisions that are synced to the BPM. Next we have the output slider which controls the volume of the recorded material in the channel going to the master. The solo and mute buttons will solo or mute the channel. The pan knob controls the pan position. The compressor knob introduces a dirty compressor in percent with higher percentages being more compressed. The final element of the channel is the buffer window. This displays the waveform of the audio in the channel. Erase will wipe the loop. By default, clicking in the buffer display window and dragging horizontally will move the playback window, and dragging vertically will adjust the length. If you toggle on zoom, clicking and dragging horizontally will scroll through the window, and dragging vertically will zoom in or out. Audio files can be dragged and dropped into the buffer window directly, however, the file must be 10 seconds or less in length. By default, the FX section is hidden. Before I get into the FX, there is one Easter egg hidden in this view. Clicking on the tape will trigger a momentary tape wobble effect. To view the FX, click the Show FX button. The first effect is Wow. This emulates the sound of a broken cassette by introducing random fluctuations in pitch. At low amounts, this can sound like a chorus type of effect. Amount controls how much the effect is being applied, and speed determines how quickly the pitch fluctuations occur. Bias adds distortion to the recorded signal. Dry-wet controls how much of the effect is being applied to the signal. Bias determines the intensity of the distortion. ENV applies an envelope to the onset of the effect. For example, if ENV is set to 100%, that means that the bias knob is being turned up to 100%. Attack and decay determine the amount of time it will take the envelope to reach its peak and how long it will take to return to its minimum. At 100% bias, it is normal to not hear any sound coming through. Flutter plays with the stereo field of the audio and creates a phaser type effect. Amount controls how much the effect is being applied. Phasing controls how much modulation is being applied to the panning. Width determines the spread of the signal across the left-right field. Speed controls how quickly the phasing is occurring. The final effect is noise. This is used for introducing tape hiss. You can select a noise source from the drop-down menu. The percent slider is used for controlling the volume of the noise. I recorded these noise sources from a few different pieces of gear I own. The final set of controls in this view are the master fader and playback controls. The output fader controls the overall volume of the 4 channels. The transport controls are the same ones from the mini view with a few additional buttons. Record will record arm all of the tracks. Play will start playback. If link is toggled on, playback will be tied to the Ableton Global Transport controls. Pause will pause playback if link isn't enabled. Half will halve the playback speed of all tracks, and 2 times will double it. The speed knob allows you to affect the speed of all tracks at once. One thing to keep in mind here is that the speed control respects the repitch settings of the individual tracks. That pretty much covers all the controls. I hope you'll have as much fun using this as I've had. There's a lot more I want to say about the plugin, but my goal with this video is to create a visual manual. I'm planning on doing a follow-up video where I cover some of the unique ways you can use this device, some tips for getting started, and some other Maxforlive device that I find play nicely with it. The plugin is available for purchase on the InnerOcean website, which is linked below. I've also created a mini sample pack of 10 groups of tracks that come bundled with the device. That's going to do it for this video. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.